This scene would look better with some context. You're going to build a small building behind the market stall to flesh out the scene. This involves going to the geometry level where you can still see the stage level to make creative decisions. You will also add detail to the geometry you create using textures created in Copernicus. Okay, so let's add, let's go flip this back to here. We're going to add a SOP create node. And we're going to add this to the end of the chain. And we're going to set this here. And we're going to change the name of this to building. And this will be /geo/ So anyway, we will, if we pump this up, we'll see that all of this is going to be part of that there. Now, let's go back to here. Actually, we don't need that right now. Now, if we want to select, just select and click it in there, and we're good to go. Now, we're going to double click to dive into this. And what we see here is dependent on what's, we have this pinned from before. So let's unpin that. So we're now down at the geometry level. What we see is dependent on this menu right here. So what we want to do is say ghost other objects. That will allow us to see the market while we do things in here. If we don't want to see that, then we just go hide other objects. So we'll sort of do a combination of those things as we go forward. So in here we're going to put a box down, a box node, and we're going to set some values. So these have been, obviously, if you're doing this creatively, you set it up the way you want, but I've already figured out what we need here. So -8, and then 16, 12, 16. And that is definitely not what I wanted there. These are supposed to be 16, 12, 16. And these are 0, 0, 0, 0. So now if we look at the scene here, we see that our stall is backed up against this building that we're going to work with. And so they have a good relationship there. So that's doing the trick. So we're going to tumble to the side of the building here. And we're going to press S to get the select tool. We can bring these tools up again if we want as well. And we're going to press this Shift A and like this. This Shift A like this. This Shift A. It's more of a manual process, but it will get the job done. As we start to create a bit of stairs that are going to go up the side of this building. And once we got all of those selected, we can go Tab, Poly Extrude, and then we can pull that out around point. Let's go 0.8. And we realize, oh, we didn't do that right. So what we can do is we can do this. And we can press the Control key and boom, just remove those extra steps that we had there and press Enter. So when you do that, you can always reselect what you have in there to get what you want. So these are big steps, compared to the scale of that, but that sort of suits the kind of building that we're doing. We're now going to tumble around to the top. And what we're going to do is press S. We're going to go every second here. And then 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to do every second along here. 1, 2, 3. And every second along here. 1, 2, 3. And then we can either go, let's go all the way to there. Now, I think we can press Q to get another polyextrude there. It repeats that, and we can pull that up, maybe 0.5. And there we go. So you created a little sort of turrets on top of there for the building that we have there. Now, let's go and hide other objects so we can focus on what this building's doing right here. And we're going to add a tab, a group node. We're going to change the name of this to base. We're going to turn off this. We're going to turn on normals. And we're going to go 0, -1, 0. And we'll do a spread of about 30. As you can see, it grabs all of the base that we have there. So that's perfect. And you have to make sure in the handle tool. If we were in the select tool, actually you still see it there, but it's best to be in the handle tool if you want to see what group has been selected. Let's add a blast node, and we're going to use that. We're going to select the base and just delete that. So the next thing is we want to bring back, not that one, this one, ghost other objects. And we're going to just tumble around there. We're going to go B and B to be in the front view so we can see that scene. Now we're going to add another blast node here. We'll set the display. And then what we can do is choose this. And we want just sort of 1 over, we're going to pick all of these. And that will pick this side and the other side and press enter. And that gets rid of there. So we've created an opening on both sides of the wall. Now press 2 to get point selection. We're going to grab this and we're going to go T. We're going to lift that up. And just down here, we want to do a soft radius just to pull up those other ones. Just to get this sort of, well, this will be an arch when it gets subdivided later, but for now, it just, we can maybe go up as high as 1.2. So the next thing that we need to do is we want to poly bridge. So we want to get, so let's go spacebar B, and again, let's hide these. We just needed them for a second before that. And we're going to press 3 to get edge selection. We're going to go here and A right to there. Go tab, poly bridge, and then we can go to the other side and go from there, press A all the way to there, and press enter. And that creates a connection between those two. And what we can do is add the divisions, set the divisions to 15 to give it about the same detail that we have in other parts of the building. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add another group node. And we're going to call this edges. And we're going to use this to help us set up some UVs. We're going to do this by angle. And we're going to go from 60 to 95. And we made a mistake there. We wanted edges, but we said there. So edges. So now what you see is we've gotten all of these edges, the sort of the hard 90-degree edges are all set up there. So now we can go and put a UV flatten, put this node down, and when we do this and there, you'll see it's just a big blob right now. But what you want to do is under the seams, pick edges. And that creates a better look there. And then we can click this button to spread those out. And that gives us the UVs. And we'll need those later when we add a texture map. Now, tab Poly Bevel. This will be the last little detail we add into here. And again, we're going to put the edges on there. And we're going to set a distance of 0.05 and divisions of 2. And that creates some edges just there. And let's see where it adds the edges. And that just gives us some detail there. Now once we have that, we want to add a little bit of noise to the overall shape. So we're going to put a mountain node down. And we're going to put that here. And that's a little too much right there. So we're going to set an amplitude of 0.075. And there we go. So that just makes it a little bit of a rougher building, and without breaking any of the things that we've done. We're going to add a null to this, and we're going to call this building out. Now, the next step is to texture it. So we're going to go up to this level here. And we're going to use some materials we've used before. So tab Quick Surface Material. We're going to put one of those down here. We're going to call this Building Material. Then we're going to go and add a Material Linker. And that will go there. Put a merge node down and feed that into there. Now we can set this. We can go down to our materials down here where we have a building material, and then we can take that and assign the building to it. And you see it got a little shinier there. To show that we actually did get that. Now, to help us get a feel for the look, we're going to add a Karma Physical Sky node, and we're going to put that at the end of the chain here. And that just gives us a nice look, and especially if we go to Karma XBU, we can get a feel for that. And then turn off those. And we're going to change this to 60, 120. There we go. Now, notice how we're getting the very sharp edges there. So one of the things we want to do is go to the SOP Create node and go on the import from SOPs there, geometry handling, and we want to turn this first option on and say treat as subdivision surfaces, and see how now that arch becomes a roundest arch and the corners feel a little bit rounder than they did before. So that's an option that we need to make sure we set there. So the building material, let's set a color of 0.25, 0.15, and 0.05. And that gives us sort of a brownish color on there. And we want to set a specular roughness of 0.8, just to soften the overall look there. Let's go down to bump, and we've got that set to height. And we're going to click this and say set or create. And then we're going to click this COP button right here, which creates a compositing network which will help us texture that. And by default, what you see right now is that it's adding a checkerboard pattern. So we're going to pin this scene here, and we're going to dive into this network here, and there's the checkerboard that was set up. Now, if we want to, we can just delete that, and we're going to go Tab, Fractal Noise, and connect the noise to the input there. And that creates, well, you're not seeing it right now, but if we change this to 10, the amplitude, you'll see that now that fractal noise is affecting the look of the building, and we're getting that what we want there. Now, if you look at the scene as it is right now, the ground surface doesn't really cover the whole building now. It also looks very plain and flat compared to everything else, so we want to do some work on that as well. So let's go all the way back to the ground surface here, double-click into here, and we're going to change some parameters on this. We're going to make it bigger, so we're going to go 50, 50. See how that covers the area better. And we'll make sure there's enough detail, so we're going to go rows and columns 50 and 50. With it flat, we don't feel that right now. We also want to go Tab UV Project onto that. And the reason we're going to do that, you've got to go Initialize. But then what we're going to do is we're going to make sure 90, 0, 0. And the scale, we're just going to go 2, 2. And I don't know whether well, we're not going to see that here at this level until we add some detail. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add a if we want to see that, we'll see that if we unpin this. Then we can see what the pattern would look like there. But if we go back into the ground. So now we're going to go and put a mountain. So just like we did with the building, we're going to add a mountain up here. And we're going to set the amplitude to 1. So it's reasonably bumpy there. You've got a number of bumps going on there. And you can see it sort of covering up the building, some of the objects there a little bit, but that's fine. We'll leave that for now. Now we don't want any points going below 0. We don't want it to do that, so we're going to put a group node tab group node down, and this one, base group enable, and we're going to go, no, we don't want that one. We're going to turn that one off, and we're going to use bounding regions. And we're going to go 100, 100, and we're going to put this to negative 0.5. And we want this to pick up points. And if we want to unpin this, we can start to see this. So you'll see that some points have been selected and others haven't. Flatten. And actually, we're going to change this to below, oh, not capital, below ground. And then in the flatten, we pick that group here, and what happens is, so if you bypass that, you see how there were pieces below the ground, and now those pieces have been lifted up and sort of flattened. So that's good. And we want to smooth this a little bit. We can do that with subdivision display later, but what we're going to do right now is just do at least one level of subdivision just to soften that when we're in the stage level. So when we go back to the stage here, that kind of thing through. And you can see now there's some bumpiness there for sure, but it's not a problem. But we want to make sure it renders properly, so just like we did before, geometry handling, and treat as subdivision services. So now when you render, you're going to render true subdivisions. You're not just adding polygons to the geometry, you're actually doing a micro-polygon sort of subdivision on that. So let's take this and alt drag this up. We're going to call this ground material. We're going to feed that in. We're going to feed that into there. And we're going to go to the material linker, and we're going to bring the ground over here, and we've got to find the ground and drag that over there. Now right now it's giving it exactly the same texture as that, but we want to use something slightly different and change the colors a little bit. So on this one here, we're going to change the colors to 0.35, 0.22, and 0.08. It's not really different, but it's all different. Now this is sort of a neat texture here, but we're going to try another one in a second. Now just like we did with the other one, this one here, let's take this, and we'll just change that and create another one. And this creates another CopNet, or actually it goes right into the same CopNet. So there's the bump height 1 and the bump height 2. This one is is a checkerboard again. So what we're going to do, and you can see that right here, so it's got the checkerboard on there. Let's pin that again. Let's go down into here. We're going to delete the checkerboard, and let's go tab whirly noise. Okay, this gives a new texture. We're going to go distance 1 into input, and you can see sort of a look there that's sort of looking interesting. Now what we want to do is we want to change the element size to 0.01 and change jitter to 1. And what this gives us is something a little bit more sandy, and you can actually feel it if you get really close in here. You can feel what that texture's doing. It's just gonna sit through. So it's got very small little detail that suits what's going on there. So you don't really feel it out here, but when you get close in, you're going to feel it. Okay, so we've got our scene set up. Let's go back to Vulkan just there. So we've got a scene that we build. It's got a ground surface, a background building. It's got all of our elements sort of composed here in the stall, and all the stall elements. And what we want to do is we want to pass this along to the next person to do shot setup, shot layout, and pass it on to the next person who wants to do shot layout and lighting. Because this doesn't even have a camera yet, so you can't really organize your shot without cameras. But this gives us, this is like the set. We built the set. We're going to pass it on to the person doing lighting, setting up cameras, and so on. And the way to do that is to put down a USD ROP. We're going to plug that to the end of the chain here. And we're going to change the name of this. We're going to go /USD/ and let's call it market scene. Now, actually, one thing we're not doing here, we should do here, is let's bypass the light. We don't want the light to be part of this yet. We're going to let the next person do the lighting. So we're going to bypass the light and just focus on the geometry and and the layout. So once we have this set up, we go save to disk, and that will do what you want. And if you want to get a feel for this, you know, what does this look like at this point? Go inspect active layer, and you'll actually see some of the USD code that went into this. So if you understand how that works, you can actually access it from right in here. We don't really need to know about that per se, but that's the code that's being saved out, and that code brings together the assets that we had before. It still references those assets, but the key is it's bringing them in and allowing us to do this. Now, one of the things about the way we set this up is this building is not super fancy. We did it in a few minutes. You could pass that geometry back to the modeling department and say, can you give me a much better looking building with more details, maybe some windows and so on, and set that up. And then we could have that set up with the component builder and then bring that asset back into the scene later. But for now, we're going to run with the one we've got here. But it certainly would be an idea that me as the scene assembly person here quickly model the building, say this is what I need, and then pass that on to someone else in the modeling department to build me a higher quality version of that asset. So anyway, thank you, and we'll come back with a shot layout.